Welcome, baseball fans, to 2020 Major League Baseball Power Rankings. It has begun. Welcome to the strength of Major League Baseball. Now, this is an unprecedented season, as you've been hearing for months and months and months. Given that this is a 60-game sprint and not a 162-game marathon, we're going to see how things play out. Fundamentally, in a 162-game season, if you don't do well in April, you can rebound the rest of the season. In a 60-game season, if you don't do well in your first 2 weeks, good luck to you. So, let's go ahead and get started and get into some power rankings. Now, this is going to be providing you a baseline for the season, because after this weekend, you'll have played all of 3 official Major League games across the league. And that's going to give you one of 4 outcomes. Either your team is going to be 3-0, 2-1, 1-2, or 3-0. 3-0. 0-3. 0-3. Practice that before I filmed. Screwed it up anyway. It is what it is. So, given the fact that you've got 30 teams that are going to be any one of 4 outcomes, you're going to need tiebreakers, and we love tiebreakers. Given this is a sprint, fundamentally the power rankings and the performance of a team is going to be based upon how they did that week. High emphasis on how well you did in that period, in that current week, whether it was 6 games, 7 games, 8 games, 4 games, whatever. There are no weeks with 4 games, but you get the idea. Now, given the fact that for a couple of weeks, and almost maybe to a quarter or halfway through, you're going to have a lot of teams even on how they did in a given week. There's only so many games, and there's a lot of ways to tie. For example, going 4-2 or 4-3, 5-2, whatever it is. Given that, we'll be using historical references for tiebreakers. For example, in the second week, you have the same record as 4 other teams, we look at how you did the previous week and give you a cumulative performance as a tiebreaker. We also take a look at run differential. I love run differential because it shows for offensive-minded fans who love runs, how many more runs did you score than somebody else with the same performance that week. Those who love defense, how well did you hold off your opponents from scoring runs during that week. And of course, if all else fails, I've got 5 levels of tiebreakers. The 5th one is if all else is even, then we take a look at where they finished off last season, because you gotta break the ice somewhere. We've got 4 levels prior to getting to that point. So yes, I realize the first week, 3 games, you're gonna have some groupings in there, and we're gonna use this baseline as a tiebreaker for that. It will play itself out and be a little more based on this season as they play more games. Having said that, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Coming in at number 30, finishing dead last on the power rankings last year, was the Detroit Tigers. They haven't done anything significant, and I don't see them rising too significantly this year. However, I will give them the benefit of the doubt and say I don't think they're going to finish at the bottom of the cellar. They will finish somewhere above 30. Coming in at number 29, the Baltimore Orioles. Now they, unfortunately, are going to basically be a punching bag for the rest of the East, between playing the Phillies, the Nationals, the Yankees, the Red Sox. All these powerhouse teams, they're going to have a hard time. And I saw the preseason game, the exhibition game yesterday between Philadelphia and Baltimore. They looked sorry. I'm sorry, Baltimore fans, but I don't give them a lot of hope. I would not be surprised if they regressed and ended up in the cellar, but we'll see what happens. Coming in at number 28, one of my favorite teams in the league, the Miami Marlins. They have made put a lot of their faith in their future prospects, which means the here and now is going to continue to suck. They're going to finish in the bottom 5, straight up. Whether they get better or worse really depends on how well Baltimore and Detroit do. That gives them the little cushion out of the cellar there, because they are perhaps a hair better, because their young talent doesn't know that they suck. Coming in number 27, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, this team, unfortunately, is in a rebuild, and they have been. They haven't been good for a while. And as such, they're going to, is projected to help some other teams like Pittsburgh and Cincinnati and things like that to help propel themselves into playoffs by feasting on the Royals and how horrible they are. Now, I would like to say they would do better, but fundamentally, I would not be surprised if Marlins actually had a better season than the Chiefs did. Coming in at number 26. Now, this is a most unfortunate situation for the Toronto Blue Jays because Canada has said you cannot play in your home stadium. They're looking at playing in Buffalo, but now you're playing the entire season away from your home fans, although they're going to be empty stadiums anyway. But still, it's a look and feel, you're used to it. You play half your season, 30 games in the same stadium, and now you're going to have to do that in a foreign stadium, more or less. We'll see how it goes. They have some young talent. Bo Bichette and others did well last year. I just don't see them having a very solid team, but they are definitely in a better position in the bottom four. They're going to probably finish in the bottom five, though. Coming at 25, your hapless Seattle Mariners. My apologies to Seattle fans, but I had high hopes for them last year, and I've been studying their history over the last 100 years, and fundamentally, they find ways to shoot themselves in the foot. They really fundamentally do. They haven't been all-star championship caliber since their Randy Johnson, Ken Griffey Jr., Alex Rodriguez days of over 20 years ago. Given that, I'm not expecting much for them, but they still make life interesting, don't they? Coming in at number 24, the Colorado Rockies. The Colorado Rockies I had a lot of hope for. They were my sleeper team last year, but considering their prime talent like Arenado are out for COVID, they're losing some potent talent. They're losing some very important talent that's going to hurt them in their division. I still think they can be competitive within their division. As far as the league as a whole, though, they're not making the playoffs, especially if they don't get that talent back. Coming in at number 23, this is the team last year that frustrated the living crap out of Pittsburgh fans because their hot and cold tendencies were so incredibly streaky you couldn't predict anything. Given that, I see that continuing this year. They're going to get hot at times, they're going to get cold times, but in a 60-game season, it's not enough firepower to propel them to your playoff picture. Coming in at 22, the San Diego Padres. They have Hosmer, they have Machado, they have a bunch of players in there that if they could only get their act together, could be a threat in the West. Given, however, the fact that you still have to deal with the 10 games with the Dodgers, honestly, it's going to be tough for them. It really is. They don't have a solid enough team. They really don't. Coming in at number 21, the Chicago White Sox. Now, they are one of my sleeper teams this year. While they finished horribly last year, they won the hot stove. Yes, I realize that people talk about how the LA Angels got Rendon and how the Yankees got Cole, and those were the winners of the hot stove. Here's the reality. Those were single individual players. They can only do so much by themselves. At the end of the day, the Chicago White Sox have really seriously reloaded. And given that, they're my sleeper team for the playoffs. We'll see what happens. But yes, I definitely expect them to rise above 21. Coming in at number 20, the San Francisco Giants. Now, I think they're gonna fall off this year, honestly, from 20 because they lost Bumgarner, and even if he gets past his prime, he's still Madison Bumgarner, and that hurts the team. Coming in at number 18, I think they're going to rise above their stars from last year, from 19 and rise up to the top half because they got Joe Madden, they got Rendon, they've got a lot of key pieces that's going to help them. Is it going to be enough against Houston? I don't know. I flip a coin. But they are definitely going to be better this year. Coming in at number 18, the Cincinnati Reds. They are another one of my sleeper teams because for all the reasons that they struggled last year between overusage of the bullpen, hitting issues, pitching issues, and everything like that, they're going to be able to use a shortened season to not wear down their bullpen pitchers too much. They're going to be able to maintain a short leash on their starting pitchers if they need to. Plus the fact that with the geographical advantages, they're going to get to feast on teams like the Chicago White Sox, not necessarily the Chicago White Sox, I apologize, but on your Kansas City Chiefs, among others, in which are going to be more or less punching bag and use that to help boost their rankings and potentially make the playoffs. Coming in at number 17, the Texas Rangers. They have a new stadium. Congratulations. And they've made some acquisitions that will help them improve. Will they be competitive enough against the LA Angels or the Houston Astros? That remains to be seen, but I do think they're going to do better this year than they did last year. Coming in at number 16, the Philippi Phillies significantly underperformed last year based upon their talent, especially in walk years for some of their talents like Remuto. They definitely have the firepower and the will, and and the players with the talent definitely want to have something to negotiate with wherever they play next year. So I definitely think they are in a prime position to challenge for the division, and they should definitely do better than the bottom half of the power rankings by the end of the season. Coming in number 15. Now, without Alex Cora on board, and they've lost their Price, they lost Mookie Betts, they lost some key pieces of their team. I see them regressing from where they are now. They are not the same strong team. They still have a lot of the core pieces, but fundamentally key pieces are there for a reason. They help balance out your team. They help provide protection. They help do a lot of things. Given that, I think they're going to regress, but if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It wouldn't be the first time. Coming in at number 14, the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, they lost Zach Greinke, but they still have, but they got Madison Bumgarner this year, and say what you will, they would have progressed by losing Greinke, but because they got Madison Bumgarner there, he can provide some wins, he'll provide leadership, he'll provide some help with the other pitching staff there. I think he can help boost them. Are they enough to challenge the Dodgers? Probably not. But are they good enough to make the wild card? It's entirely possible. And I did pick the Arizona Diamondbacks against the Philippi Phillies as the wild card matchup. I want to see the there was a reason why I picked that. I can't remember off the top of my head. Either way, I know I picked the Joe Madden former team versus former team for something or other. Anyway, my brain's drawing a blank as to why I picked the wild card. Go back and watch the video. I just did it last Saturday there, my picks of the wild card picks. You can check out the notes there. Coming in number 13, the Chicago Cubs. All your players are a year older. You don't have Joe Madden, and you have some players in the walk years. I think they're going to regress from where they are now, but they'll certainly make things interesting for the rest of the league. Coming in at number 12 are the New York Mets. They have Robinson Cano, they have a brand new manager, and they've lost Zach Wheeler, which I don't know if that's a blessing or a curse for them, because fundamentally I saw Zach Wheeler against Baltimore, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, Phillies. However, for the Mets, maybe that's a blessing. You never know. We'll see what happens. I mean, I honestly think they're not going to do as well as last year. They had better pieces last year than they do this year because the same pieces they have are a year older now. Who knows if they're going to perform to the caliber? I do have them performing a little bit lower down than last year, but this is where they stand for now. This is where they're baseline, so we'll see how they do. After all, games make the difference in power rankings here. Coming number 11, the Cleveland Indians. This was a team with which I could have sworn that they were going to win the division last year. Minnesota was just too strong, just too good, and they ended up hitting the most home runs in the majors last year. Given that, Cleveland finished a strong second. I do think that they can rebound, and they did underperform last year to a certain degree, and they can rebound this year and do better. They still have Francona, they have Lindor, they have a lot of key pieces there. They did lose Kluber. Good luck to the Texas Rangers in that regard, but given that I still think they have enough to do better than they did last year. Whether or not it's enough to get into the playoffs remains to be seen, but I still think they have the potential to get up there. Now, when I say potential here, ultimately it comes down to playing the games, because a battery has potential, but until you plug in and see how far it can go, you don't know what it can do. Hence, we're doing baseline power rankings, largely based upon, these are all the same rankings they were from the end of the season last year. Now, we get into the playoff field here, and this is going to be different from last year because they continue playing more games and enable themselves to actually establish firm rankings based upon their playoff performance. Given that, we have our early exit by the Brewers, where they have that lock, stock, and barrel. If it wasn't for Washington coming up with those late inning magic to shock the heck out of them, they could have gone on to the division series and been higher ranking here. Given that, they did a phenomenal job even making the wild card, and they thought they had it in control. They just couldn't seal the deal. So they end up in number 10. Speaking of wild card exits, the Oakland Athletics. I thought they would have won last year against the Tampa Bay Rays, but the Rays were fundamentally built far stronger for a short game or a one-game playoff, and it proved it because they beat Oakland in the wild card, and they took Houston to 5 games. Oakland still had a very strong year. Still should be very proud of them. They've accomplished a lot, and they had the pieces that they could have won. They even had home field advantage. So congratulations, Billy Beane, on another playoff team. Albeit, I'm sorry to say, another playoff early exit team. Coming in at number 8 are the Minnesota Twins, with whom had a phenomenal year. They out-hit more home runs than anybody else in the majors, and even the Yankees by 1. Although the Yankees hit more runs, they had more home runs, which shows more power in their lineup, shows more depth. Given that, they still could not change their colors or their fate, given the fact that they've suffered playoff exits at the hand of the Yankees time and time again. And last year was no different, getting swept out of the playoffs. But they still won their division. They still took care of Cleveland, held on to the division. Congratulations, Minnesota. We had many wonderful things to look forward to, and I do have you pegged for winning the division this year again. You have a lot of the same pieces, and I'm expecting a lot of big things from you. Coming in at number 7, the surprise Atlanta Braves with that young pitching, fantastic rotation. It's unfortunate that you lost Freeman to the year due to the COVID and him opting out. It's prerogative. I wish him the best. All health to all the players. Having said that, I still think they can take the division again, even without Freeman and whoever else. They might exit the season early. We'll see what happens, but we saw a lot of powerful things from the Braves, and so therefore they get to start the season at number 7. Coming in at number 6, your Tampa Bay Rays, having taken out the Oakland Athletics and then pushing the eventual World Series contender, Houston Astros, all the way to Game 5, and having a shot actually taking out Houston. Wonderful job. You definitely deserve it. You are definitely one of the higher ranked teams for the division around here. And fundamentally, you could have been higher, but the only other team in the division around exited early who fundamentally had a stronger season than you were the LA Dodgers. LA Dodgers, what a shock to the system. A powerhouse, juggernaut team challenging the Yankees and the Astros for number 1 seed the entire season, and then look what happened. They run into the Washington Nationals, with which obviously were strong enough to take them out, that they won the World Series. So, given that, for your division round exits, you definitely got the top seed there, with Tampa Bay getting an honorable mention. Coming in at the for the LCS exits, coming in number 4, your St. Louis Cardinals, doing a wonderful job taking out the Braves, going against the Washington Nationals and throwing everything you had at them. A wonderful job. You came from behind. You swept in late in the season to take the division. You held off the Braves. And you deserve to be number 4. Congratulations. I'm looking forward to seeing all the wonderful things you can do this year. Coming in at number 3, your ALCS exit. Your New York Yankees, with whom are every bit the juggernaut they were last year, with the added benefit of the fact that now you've got Paxton coming back healthy, you've got Judge coming back healthy, Stitt coming back healthy. Shall I go on? This team is stacked and loaded. They remember how that felt losing 2 ALCSs to the Houston Astros, and they want theirs. Good luck to everyone who compete against them. Having said that, I'm watching them play the Philippi Phillies, and yes, it's an exhibition game. It doesn't matter. They're not playing all their stars. I get that. But they do get to start in the season opener in Washington against Scherzer. Culver Scherzer should be very interesting. Fundamentally, they are going to finish in the top 5, I believe, because they really do have a very deep team and lots of reserves to fill in the blanks, as they proved last year. Can anybody beat them? We'll find out. They aren't ranked number 1 for a reason. Speaking of ranking number 1, coming in at number 2, your Houston Astros, taking out the Yankees. 2 ALCSs in... They didn't take them out in 18. That was the Red Sox who took them out. But in 17 and 19, they took out the Yankees in the ALCS. This is a team that continues to dominate, continues to play well, continues to own their division, and even despite losing Garrett Cole, they haven't lost most of their talent. They're still a juggernaut, and until proven otherwise, they are, in the AL, the team to beat. Speaking of team to beat, you've got our World Series champions, Washington Nationals, by default, starting off the baseline power rankings at number 1 for winning the World Series. You deserve that much for taking your all-star rotation, your deep lineup, your surprise hitting, your clutch hitting, and managerial genius of Dave Martinez, and taking everything and knocking out the juggernaut that is the Houston Astros, and surpassing everybody else to finish the top of the baseball world. Given that, these are your power rankings for to start off the 2020 baseball season. I'm looking forward to seeing how this unfolds. Like I said, we're going to be using some historical references to get through the first couple power rankings, because there just aren't games to compare against. Your first next Monday, you're going to have played 3 whole games. You're going to have 1 of 4 records. There's no other option. You've played 3 games. So you're going to have run differential in there. You're going to have past season record here as tiebreakers. You're going to have a lot of things. We'll see how it works out. There will be potentially some differences here depending on how they play. But as the first few weeks get underway, we will see some differentiation, and we'll have some actual rankings based upon performance this season. Let me know what you think about what I think. Is your team going to rise or fall? Let me know how you think they're going to do. Let me know what you think of the where they rank as a baseline for this season. And welcome to Baseball 2020. If you happen to be coming across this video or browsing through YouTube, please hit like and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great evening.